Breaking today, the British monarchy fights back. After months of negative headlines and suggestions that it's all over, after months of appalling behaviour by Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, who insist that they didn't watch the King's historic speeches last night, the Prince and Princess of Wales have shown us the future.
For years, Prince Harry's explosive revelations and public accusations seemed to leave the royal family cornered, silent, and unwilling to strike back. But behind palace walls, tensions were quietly building to a breaking point. Now, in a move nobody saw coming, King Charles and Prince William have reportedly decided they've had enough, and their response has sent shockwaves through royal watchers everywhere. What began as a family feud may have suddenly turned into an all-out battle for reputation, loyalty, and power. So what exactly did William and Charles do that left Harry completely speechless? But how do you think they would fight back? Could they ever damage their image? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. To help us create more videos and uncover the latest royal drama, please subscribe. Monarchy strikes back. For months, the British royal family seemed surrounded by endless criticism. Hardly a week passed without dramatic headlines predicting disaster for the monarchy. Some experts claimed the institution was slowly losing its place in modern society. Others argued that younger generations no longer cared about kings, queens, or royal traditions. Every public appearance, speech, or family disagreement was examined under a microscope, fueling constant debate about whether the monarchy could truly survive the pressures of today's world. The situation became even more complicated because of the continuing tension involving Prince Harry and Meghan Markle. Their interviews, projects, and public statements continued to create headlines across both Britain and America. To many observers, the royal family appeared tired, divided, and overwhelmed by controversy. Critics repeatedly described the monarchy as outdated, disconnected, and unable to adapt to a rapidly changing society. But then something unexpected happened. In the space of a single week, the entire mood surrounding the monarchy appeared to shift. Suddenly, the royal family no longer looked fragile or uncertain. Instead, it appeared calm, organized, and remarkably confident. Rather than fading into the background of public life, the monarchy once again dominated international attention, but this time in a far more positive and powerful way. At the center of this surprising turnaround stood King Charles III. For much of his life, Charles lived in the shadow of his mother, Queen Elizabeth II, whose extraordinary reign shaped generations. Many people questioned whether Charles could ever command the same admiration, respect, and emotional connection that she inspired around the world. Some critics viewed him as overly serious, too political, or lacking the quiet strength that made Elizabeth such a globally respected figure. Yet this particular week forced many people to reconsider those doubts. Despite continuing cancer treatment, Charles traveled to America and delivered speeches that surprised even some of his harshest critics. His appearances felt measured, thoughtful, and emotionally grounded. Observers on both sides of the Atlantic praised his composure and determination, while supporters admired his willingness to continue carrying out royal duties during such a difficult personal period. At the same time, Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, released a warm and deeply personal family photograph celebrating 15 years of marriage. The image quickly spread across social media and quietly reassured millions of royal supporters that the future of the monarchy still looked stable, united, and secure. Meanwhile, reports claimed that Harry and Meghan had not even watched the king's speeches. Whether intentional or not, the contrast became impossible for the public to ignore. One side of the royal story projected duty, stability, resilience, and quiet confidence. The other continued to project frustration, distance, and the constant need to defend itself publicly. And almost overnight, the monarchy stopped looking like an institution slowly collapsing under pressure. Instead, it looked like an institution finding its strength again. Did the monarchy ignore Harry's tantrums? What did the monarchy do that made Harry feel so embarrassed? Let's delve into the details of King Charles's walk into Washington. The tested king. The American visit was important long before it even began. Whenever a British monarch travels to the United States, the world pays attention. These visits are never just about politics or formal meetings. They carry the weight of history, tradition, and the long relationship between Britain and America. Every handshake, every speech, and every public appearance becomes part of a larger story about power, influence, and international friendship. But this visit felt different from the start because of the people involved. On one side was King Charles, a monarch known for his thoughtful nature, calm manner, and long-standing interest in global issues like climate change and cultural unity. On the other side was Donald Trump, a political figure famous for being unpredictable, outspoken, emotional, and impossible to fully control. Trump often says exactly what he thinks, even during serious international events, which has made many world leaders visibly uncomfortable in the past. Because of this, many people expected tension, awkward moments, or even public disagreement. Instead, something surprising happened. Charles appeared calm, confident, and completely in control throughout the visit. Rather than looking nervous or uncertain, he carried himself with quiet authority. His speech before Congress quickly became one of the most talked about royal appearances in recent memory. The moment itself was already historic, since only a handful of British monarchs have ever addressed the American legislature. But what truly stunned observers was the reaction inside the chamber. Members of both major political parties applauded him warmly. Democrats responded positively. Republicans did too. In today's deeply divided political climate, moments of unity inside Congress are extremely rare. Yet Charles somehow managed to create one. Even Trump reportedly admired what he had witnessed, pointing out how unusual it was to see both sides agreeing and responding positively at the same time. That reaction mattered because it did not seem forced or diplomatic. It appeared genuine. Still, the speech also opened the door to serious debate. During his address, Charles spoke about climate change, democratic values, international cooperation, and the importance of strong alliances between Britain and America. These were not random talking points. They were causes he had supported for decades, long before he became king. Supporters praised the speech as intelligent, honest, and deeply sincere. To them, Charles sounded like a leader speaking openly about the challenges facing the modern world. They admired the fact that he did not abandon his beliefs simply because he now wore the crown. Critics, however, saw danger in the moment. The British monarchy has traditionally survived by staying politically neutral. Monarchs are expected to rise above party politics and avoid taking positions that could divide public opinion. Some feared that by speaking so openly about controversial global issues, Charles risked weakening the invisible protective shield that has long protected the crown. That is what made the debate so fascinating. Both sides had convincing arguments. Charles did not appear reckless or careless. His words clearly came from deeply held personal convictions. Yet the question remained impossible to ignore. How far can a constitutional monarch go before sincerity begins to look political? Even so, by the end of the visit, one thing became undeniable. Whether people agreed with him or not, Charles carried himself with unmistakable royal presence. Even many critics admitted the same thing afterward. He looked every bit the king. Was the king's speech the only jaw-dropping situation? What else did he do that left the public amazed? Let's dive into the details of the state dinner that changed everything. Warmth beyond protocol. If the speech at the congressional address earned respect, the state dinner that followed earned something even deeper: genuine affection. This was the moment when King Charles seemed to truly relax into himself. The strict formality of earlier events began to fade away. The room felt warmer, less like a political stage and more like a shared human space. Instead of carefully measured diplomatic statements, the king began to speak and react with ease. He smiled more freely, laughed more openly, and showed a side of himself that felt natural rather than rehearsed. Observers quickly noticed how at ease he appeared in the presence of Donald Trump. That detail stood out because many leaders find it difficult to settle into a steady rhythm with Trump. Conversations around him can shift suddenly. He often interrupts, jokes at unexpected moments, or changes direction without warning. This can unsettle even experienced diplomats who rely on structure and predictability. Yet Charles seemed to adjust without struggle. He did not appear rushed or thrown off. Instead, he matched the moment with calm confidence, allowing the conversation to flow rather than resisting its unpredictability. That ability to adapt gave the evening a lighter, more human tone. One small exchange captured everything perfectly. Trump jokingly asked whether William the Conqueror had been a kind man. Without hesitation, Charles smiled and replied that he rather doubted it. The comment was simple, almost playful, but it landed perfectly. The room responded with laughter, and for a brief moment, formality disappeared entirely. That short burst of humor carried surprising weight. It showed that diplomacy is not only built on official agreements or prepared speeches. Often, the strongest connections between leaders come from small, unplanned moments of shared laughter. When people laugh together, barriers fall away. Trust becomes easier. Tension softens. In that sense, humor can sometimes achieve what long negotiations cannot. Throughout the dinner, Charles continued in this gentle, thoughtful tone. His humor was not loud or forced. It was careful, intelligent, and slightly self-aware. He seemed comfortable enough to laugh at himself when appropriate, but never lost his dignity. Many people watching were reminded of Queen Elizabeth II, who was known for the same quiet, well-timed humor and emotional balance. At the same time, something else became clear. Charles did not look uncomfortable or out of place. He looked content, even quietly, joyful. This surprised many viewers who have long seen him as overly serious, slightly awkward, or weighed down by duty. Instead, they saw a man who understood his position and was growing into it with confidence. The moment also carried added emotional weight because of his ongoing health challenges. Knowing that he was undergoing cancer treatment made his calm presence and steady energy even more striking. It suggested resilience and quiet strength rather than weakness or retreat. By the end of the evening, a subtle shift in perception had taken place. For some, Charles was no longer seen merely as a temporary figure holding the throne until the next generation. Instead, he appeared as a monarch fully stepping into his role, shaping it in his own style, and proving that he is capable of leading not just with duty, but with presence, warmth, and humanity. So how did William respond from his own end? What did he do? Let's dig into the details of the perfect response delivered by William and Catherine. Calm in continuity. While global attention was largely focused on King Charles and his activities in America, a quieter but deeply meaningful royal moment was unfolding back home in the United Kingdom, one that gently shifted public conversation in a different direction. Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, released a new family photograph marking 15 years of their marriage. At first glance, it looked like a simple celebration image, but its timing gave it far greater weight. It came after months filled with rumors, health worries, and constant public speculation about the princess and the state of the royal family. Against that background, the photograph felt less like a casual post and more like a steady, calming response to ongoing noise. The image showed William and Catherine with their children, Prince George, Princess Charlotte, and Prince Louis, alongside their family dogs. The setting appeared to be a quiet, private holiday moment rather than a formal royal photo shoot. There were no signs of heavy staging, strict posing, or carefully controlled expressions. Instead, everything felt natural, almost like a snapshot taken during a real family break. That sense of naturalness became the strongest feature of the photograph. In today's world, people are quick to question what they see. Audiences are highly aware of image manipulation, public relations planning, and overly polished family branding. When a picture feels too perfect or too carefully designed, it often creates doubt instead of trust. But this image avoided that reaction. It did not try too hard to impress. It simply showed a family being themselves. The children looked relaxed and comfortable in their surroundings. Prince George appeared composed, as expected of the future heir, but still at ease. Princess Charlotte and Prince Louis added a sense of liveliness and warmth that made the scene feel even more real. William's expression reflected calm stability, while Catherine appeared healthy, bright, and genuinely happy. Even the family dogs played an important role in shaping the mood, adding a layer of everyday normality that many people connect with easily. Without using any words, the photograph quietly delivered several strong messages at once. It suggested that the family remains united despite public pressure. It reassured observers that Catherine is recovering and doing well. It also reinforced the idea that the younger generation of the monarchy is growing up in a stable and supportive environment. Most importantly, it hinted that the future of the royal family remains steady and intact. The timing of the image also mattered in another way. In recent discussions, some critics had argued that the monarchy appeared increasingly aged in its public representation, especially in official portraits that often featured senior royals more prominently. This anniversary photograph offered a quiet but clear counterpoint to that claim. It placed children, parents, and continuity at the center of the frame, reminding the public that the monarchy is not only about the present leadership, but also about what comes next. Perhaps the most striking part of all was how effortlessly the image achieved this. There was no sense of urgency, no attempt to defend or argue, and no visible effort to seek approval. Instead, it projected calm confidence. In doing so, it turned a simple family photograph into a powerful message of stability, continuity, and quiet reassurance at a time when many were paying close attention. Which quiet moment caught people's attention? What was the moment about? Let's take a look at Prince George and the weight of destiny that awaits him. The weight of destiny. Among the warm smiles and joyful atmosphere captured in the anniversary photograph, one small detail quietly stood out and quickly became the center of public attention. While most eyes were drawn to the overall happiness of the moment, many people found themselves focusing again and again on the expression of Prince George of Wales. Unlike his younger siblings, who appeared relaxed, playful, and fully carried by the lightness of the occasion, George looked noticeably more serious. His face carried a calmness that seemed deeper than his age. It was not sadness, but a composed, thoughtful stillness that made him stand apart in the image. Almost immediately, people online began to talk about it. Some saw it as simple shyness in front of the camera. Others believed it reflected something more meaningful, the early shaping of a future king. Throughout public appearances over the years, George has often shown a quiet awareness that feels unusual for a child. Even when he is smiling or joining in family moments, there are times when he seems conscious of being watched. That sense of awareness, observers say, is part of growing up in a life where privacy is rare and expectations are constant. The reason for this interpretation is closely tied to his role. George is not just any royal child, he is the future king. That single fact changes how people see him, and possibly how he experiences the world himself. At just 12 years old, he is already connected to a future filled with duty, history, tradition, and public responsibility that stretches far beyond his present life. That kind of knowledge, even if it is only partially understood at his age, can shape personality in quiet ways. It may influence how he speaks, how he stands, and even how he expresses emotion in public. Childhood, in his case, is naturally different. It unfolds under the shadow of expectation that one day he will lead an entire monarchy. For many viewers, there was something deeply touching about seeing signs of that future already reflected in his expression. It reminded people that behind the polished images and formal occasions, there is still a young boy learning to grow into a role he did not choose, but will one day inherit. At the same time, some found comfort in what they saw. The seriousness was not interpreted as pressure alone, but also as maturity. They saw calmness instead of confusion. They saw discipline instead of discomfort. There was a sense that he is being gently guided into understanding his future, step by step. Observers often point out that Prince William, his father, also showed a similar seriousness at a young age. This pattern is not unusual within the royal family. Future monarchs are often gradually prepared from childhood, not through sudden change, but through steady exposure to responsibility, tradition, and public life. Because of this, George's calm expression in the photograph became more than just a moment captured on camera. For many supporters of the monarchy, it became symbolic. It suggested continuity, stability, and preparation already taking root in the next generation. In a world that often feels unpredictable, the image offered something simple but powerful, a quiet reminder of succession moving forward, not with noise or drama, but with steady, careful steps. Amidst the glamorous moments here and there, a couple seems to be on the other side of the table. Who are they? What happened? Let's delve into the details of Harry and Meghan's "we didn't watch" moment. Distance that clings. Then came what many commentators began calling the Sussex briefing, a moment that quickly turned into a fresh wave of public debate. Reports began to circulate claiming that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle had not watched any of King Charles's speeches at all, not when they were delivered live, not later in recorded form, not even short clips or highlight moments shared online. According to unnamed insiders, the couple had completely stayed away from the event. The claims went even further. It was said there were no phone calls exchanged about the speeches, no private messages sent to acknowledge them, and no emotional connection being expressed toward the royal family during that period. On the surface, the message being pushed was simple and firm. Harry and Meghan had fully moved on from royal matters and were now living entirely separate lives. But this is where things became complicated, because almost immediately, many people refused to accept the story at face value. A major reason was common sense. People argued that when someone is truly detached from a situation, they usually do not feel the need to explain how detached they are. Real disinterest is quiet. It does not announce itself. It does not seek attention. So the idea that a briefing was needed to tell the world what they did or did not watch already raised eyebrows. That contradiction became the center of discussion. Instead of ending curiosity, the briefing seemed to increase it. Observers pointed out that if Harry and Meghan had genuinely closed the chapter on royal life, then why would it matter enough to ensure journalists knew they had not watched the speeches? The effort to make that fact public appeared, to some critics, unnecessary and even defensive. Many commentators began to question the timing as well. At that moment, King Charles was receiving a wave of positive attention for his speeches and public appearances. Prince William and Catherine were also enjoying strong media coverage, especially after a widely shared photograph that reinforced a sense of stability within the monarchy. Overall, the royal family was having a rare and successful news cycle, with headlines that painted a picture of unity and strength. A briefing suggesting Harry and Meghan were not watching the king's speeches landed during a moment of strong royal momentum. Some observers felt the timing drew more attention to them than intended, almost like a reaction to the positive focus on the royal family. Critics said it shifted the spotlight back to the Sussexes when it was elsewhere. Ironically, repeated claims of emotional distance from royal life seemed to do the opposite, sparking renewed public debate about their ongoing connection to the monarchy. What makes it more complex for the Sussexes to let go easily? Do they really lack independence? Let's dive into the details of the problem with escaping the royal brand. Royal identity debate. Another uncomfortable truth quietly came back into public conversation during the week, and it is one that Harry and Meghan often cannot escape, no matter how far they try to move away from royal life. Their public identity is still deeply tied to the British monarchy. It shows up in many ways. Their titles, their global attention, their media deals, their speaking engagements, their business opportunities, even the way people talk about them in the news. Almost everything that keeps them in the global spotlight can be traced back, directly or indirectly, to their former roles as senior royals. This does not mean they are without talent. It also does not mean they have not worked hard to build new careers outside the palace system. They have both tried to create their own path, tell their own story, and build brands that stand on their own. But the reality remains simple and hard to ignore. The monarchy is still a major part of their public value. That became even more noticeable as fresh reports surfaced during the week about new projects, possible tours, and fresh business deals linked to the Sussex name. Each new update brought attention, excitement, and also criticism. Some observers quickly pointed out what they saw as a clear contradiction. How can someone say they want full independence from royal life while still earning money and influence from a name that is rooted in that same royal system? At the center of this debate is the Sussex name itself. On its own, it is just a title, but in reality, it carries global weight because it is connected to the crown. Without that royal link, it is doubtful it would attract the same level of worldwide attention, media interest, or commercial value. This is why some critics argue that complete separation from the monarchy is very difficult, if not impossible, in practice. Even when physical distance exists, the symbolic connection remains strong. During the same week, the contrast in public perception became even clearer. King Charles, Prince William, and Catherine were seen focusing on traditional royal duties. Their public appearances were centered on state responsibilities, official visits, and long-term institutional continuity. Their work, whether praised or criticized, still fits neatly within the expected role of the monarchy. Meanwhile, Harry and Meghan were once again surrounded by discussions about branding, media strategy, and future commercial direction. Instead of royal duties, the conversation around them leaned heavily toward image, influence, and business identity. This contrast shaped public perception of the royal family. One side was seen as committed to duty, tradition, and service, while the other focused on independence and personal branding in global media. Supporters see adaptation and financial independence. Critics see continued reliance on royal privilege. Ultimately, perception often outweighs reality. But why would anyone want to leave such an affluent life? What was Harry's reason for leaving the palace in the first place? Let's find out. Royal exit story. In January 2020, Prince Harry and Meghan Markle made a decision that changed the direction of modern royal history. Their announcement shocked the British monarchy and quickly spread across the world's news outlets. The couple revealed that they would step back from their roles as senior working members of the royal family. This meant they were no longer going to carry out official royal duties full-time. The move broke from a system that had been in place for many generations, and it soon became popularly known as Megxit. Behind this bold decision was a buildup of pressure that had been growing for some time. Harry and Meghan were dealing with intense stress from public life. They often felt caught between two difficult worlds: the responsibilities of royal duty on one side and the constant demands of public attention on the other. Their lives were closely followed every day, with newspapers, television programs, and social media constantly reporting on them. Photographers often followed them wherever they went, and many stories written about them were harsh or critical. For Meghan in particular, this level of attention was overwhelming. For Harry, it brought back painful memories connected to his childhood. He had seen how his mother, Princess Diana, suffered under heavy media pressure. Because of this, he became very sensitive to how the press treated his wife. The couple often felt that their private lives were no longer truly private, and this created emotional strain and frustration. At the same time, there were also tensions within the royal system itself. Harry and Meghan wanted to build a more independent identity, including plans to develop a brand known as Sussex Royal. However, Buckingham Palace did not allow them to use this name for commercial or business purposes. This decision highlighted the strict rules that come with being part of the royal family. It also showed that even high-ranking royals must follow long-standing traditions and guidelines. Harry and Meghan had first met in 2016, and their relationship quickly became widely known around the world. In 2018, they were married in a ceremony watched by millions of people globally. Despite the excitement and public support at the time, life after marriage became increasingly challenging under constant public pressure. When they stepped away from official duties, they were still allowed to keep their titles as the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. However, they were no longer permitted to use the style His Royal Highness or Her Royal Highness in official settings. In addition, Prince Harry gave up his honorary military positions, which had been very important to him personally, since he had served in the armed forces and valued that part of his identity deeply. Even after leaving royal duties and relocating abroad, their connection to the royal family did not completely disappear. When King Charles III later became king, their children automatically received royal titles. Their son became Prince Archie of Sussex, and their daughter became Princess Lilibet of Sussex. This meant that, despite the distance and changes in roles, the Sussex family remained linked to the history and structure of the British monarchy in a lasting way. How was the monarchy able to gain its stability despite the storms? Could it be a change in the regular patterns? Let's dig into the reason why the monarchy suddenly feels strong again. Why the monarchy suddenly feels strong again. Perhaps the most important lesson from this week is simple. The monarchy is one of the best institutions in the world at using emotional symbolism. It does not fight criticism with angry statements, long explanations, or public arguments. It does not hold dramatic press conferences or attack opponents directly. Instead, it responds through images, actions, and quiet messages that are carefully planned. A king doing his duties even while unwell, a successful diplomatic visit, a warm family photo, and a future king standing calmly beside his parents all send strong messages. These simple images create a powerful feeling of strength and stability. For many years, critics have said the monarchy survives only because of old traditions, but this week tells a different story. It survives because it understands emotional storytelling and knows how to shape public feeling over time. People see resilience in King Charles, stability in William and Catherine, and continuity in Prince George. This builds a sense of trust and makes the institution feel steady and unshakable. This kind of emotional impact cannot be created quickly through advertising or media strategies. It is built slowly over many years through repetition, discipline, and consistent behavior. Supporters say this is where Harry and Meghan have found it harder to achieve the same effect in California. Celebrity culture moves fast, while royal culture moves slowly, and that difference is important. The monarchy is not built to win every news moment, but to last far beyond them. This week reminded many people of that lasting difference and why it still matters. More than anything, it showed how powerful quiet consistency can be when compared to loud reactions, and how carefully built traditions continue to shape public opinion even in a fast-changing modern world over time with strong emotional memory and symbolism power. What made the monarchy's success a significant win? What are they doing differently this time around? Let's take a look at the week the royal family reclaimed the narrative. The week the royal family reclaimed the narrative. By the end of the week, the difference between the two royal worlds was impossible to ignore. In Washington, King Charles III stood beside world leaders, giving speeches filled with humor, intelligence, and quiet confidence. Back in Britain, Prince William and Catherine, Princess of Wales, offered a calm image of unity, family strength, and emotional warmth. Meanwhile, in California, Harry and Meghan were reportedly telling journalists that they had not watched the king's speeches. One side appeared focused on duty, while the other appeared focused on reaction, and that difference shaped public perception more than any statement. Perhaps the most remarkable thing about the monarchy's success this week was its calmness. With no dramatic counterattacks or public confrontations, the monarchy simply continued its duties, performing its role steadily and effectively without distraction. And in doing so, it reminded many people around the world why the institution still matters. Charles looked strong, William looked prepared, Catherine looked steady, and young George appeared to be learning his future role. The royal family, once described as fading, suddenly appeared more alive and united again. This may be the real reason the week mattered so much. It was not because every speech was perfect or every problem disappeared, but because, for the first time in a long while, the monarchy no longer looked defensive. It looked calm, confident, and steady in its purpose. That sense of quiet confidence changed how many people viewed the monarchy, even among those who usually do not follow royal affairs closely. It showed that strength does not always need loud arguments or public drama. Sometimes it is shown through steady service, calm presence, and consistency in duty, even when the world is watching closely and expecting conflict or weakness to appear. And that impression lingered beyond the week itself. So, what do you think about Harry being odd? Do you think it might bring Hi to his knees? We'd love to hear your opinions in the comments below. And don't forget to like and subscribe.